Hi and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. If you've been watching these for the last few weeks, you'll know that I've been talking about a man called Daniel and his friends. Now there's one story about Daniel that's probably the most famous of all, and that is where we've now got to. Daniel in the lion's den. So this story begins with a group of officials who were jealous of the success of this foreigner, Daniel, and the success he had with the king. Daniel had been taken captive and exiled in a foreign land. Whilst there, he became very important in the service of quite a number of kings, it turned out. Now, since last week, there's been another change of leadership in the country, and now a man called Darius is king. Darius is doing well, and Darius likes Daniel, and Daniel likes Darius. In fact, Darius liked Daniel so much, he put him in charge of the whole kingdom. Prime Minister, if you like. But the other officials, they're not so happy about this, and they're trying to find something, anything, that Daniel is doing wrong so they can report him and get rid of him. Eventually, they come up with a plan. They get the king to sign a new law that basically inflates the king's ego. This new law says that no one may pray to any human or god for the next 30 days except the king himself. The king likes the sound of this, so he signs the law, little realising the impact it will have. Daniel hears about it and goes home and prays to God. It's his custom to pray at an open window facing Jerusalem. He'd never hidden his faith, and he wasn't going to start now. Of course, the other officials have been waiting for this, so they immediately go back to the king and report Daniel. They say to the king that he has no choice but to enact the law, and the penalty written into this law for disobedience is to be thrown into a pit of lions. Darius is horrified. He really hadn't thought this through, and Daniel's his friend. So for the rest of the day, he tried everything to try and find a way out. But in the end, even the king had to submit to the law. That evening, Daniel is taken. And you know what the king said to him? Daniel, you have been faithful to your God, and now I pray that he will rescue you. And with that, Daniel's thrown into a pit of hungry lions, and to make sure he can't escape, a large rock is put over the entrance. All night, the king can't sleep. He paces up and down. He worries constantly about Daniel. As dawn broke, Darius rushed back to the pit and ordered the rock removed, and he called out to Daniel, hoping desperately, but not really expecting any reply. And then he heard Daniel call back. He was safe. He was unhurt by the lions. For what he said, God sent an angel to close the mouths of all those lions. So the king immediately had Daniel pulled out of the pit to safety. Of course, that left a pit of very hungry lions, so the king took those officials, the ones who tricked him, and had them thrown in instead. Needless to say, the lions' mouths were not closed this time. You know, this is another story showing how God protects the people who are faithful to him, giving them what they need at the time that they need it. It's been a bit of a theme of several of these stories. If you remember, first Daniel and his friends were kept healthy when they only ate food that was acceptable to their laws. And then his friends were kept safe when they were thrown into a fiery furnace. And then Daniel was kept safe when the king asked the impossible of him and all the wise people. And even when Daniel provided interpretations of dreams that were not good news for the king, God continued to protect him. Next week we'll look at the end of the book, the last bit, because all these things are recorded in the Bible, handily in a book called Daniel, and the focus really turns away from Daniel and his friends and to those who live in the future. That's you and that's me. God still looks after people who love him today. You know, I think that's one of the reasons that this book says so much about protection. Because it wasn't just for them back then. It's for us now. And sometimes we look around this world and we think we could do with some protection. We'll find out next week. For now, God bless you, and I'll see you then.